Alright, everyone. After like a month or so of work making this list and deciding what's going to be on the list, it is now time for my top 5 video games, for me, of every single year from 2024 all the way back to 1996. So 28 years we're going to be doing. I have played games older than that. The oldest game I played was golf back in 1984. But almost no game after 1996, the list would be either there would be some years where I have no list whatsoever, or like one game, if that, as such. So I decided 1996 being like the last full year, I decided to wrap it up right there. So it's going to be 2024 to 2026. It's too early to do 2025. The only games I played in 2025 were like demos and such, so no point at doing that. So this list is going to have the top 5 games that came out of that year. So it's going to be games that came out that year. Even if I played them like later on and such, it's going to be when they came out, not when I first played them. It'll also include what console I primarily play them on, what's the genre, and how many hours I put into them. Also on the list will also be honorable mentions. Games I think deserve to be mentioned, but were not good enough to get outright into the top 5. Alright, so with that out of the way, all this work, let's get to it now. My top 5 games of every single year from 2024 to 1996, and we're going to go current year backwards. So the first up will be 2024. And this was very easy, as it's Asia History Free, the new grand strategy game that came out at the end of October last year. And I've played that like crazy! That is the second best grand strategy game ever, behind only Vicky 2. I am absolutely addicted to that game, and I want to do more playthroughs of it in the future. And Pal World was number 2. It was number 1 when I first played it, but sorry, Asia History Free, that's more my genre, that overtook it easily. Then Super Mario Party Jamboree, Madden NFL 25, and then finally TCG Card Shop Simulator, which I've played a lot back in September and October. It's a business sim where you run a trading card shop. And the honorable mentions are Pokemon Sword Shield Ultimate. It's a ROM hack of Pokemon Sword and Shield for Game Boy Advance. I'm putting it in 2024 because I don't know exactly when it came out. I looked it up, I couldn't find anything, and I first played in 2024, so I'm just going to assume it came out in 2024. That's why the asterisk is there. And the last one is Car Manufacturer. It's on Steam. It's a business sim where you run a car factory that makes cars and a dealership at the same time. And it's pretty addictive, even though I haven't played in like 2 months. And man, it's pretty like all over the place in terms of difficulty. You can easily make a shit ton of money, and all of a sudden out of nowhere you're going to be losing money and going bankrupt. It's like very finicky and such. But yeah, that's my top 5 game list of 2024. Asia History Free, easily at the top. Alright, now for 2023. And that, of course, is Pikmin 4! I think the best Pikmin of the series for the Switch. And right underneath is Pikmin 1 plus 2, which is Pikmin 1 and 2 on the Switch. That game is so addictive. I mean, it's so nice to play the first 2 games on the Switch. I know it's a little odd to consider Adam, because it literally is just the first 2 games. But there is some updates to it that makes it a little bit easier, so I figured, you know what, why not? Plus, 2023 was kind of a weak class, that's why there's no honorable mentions. And then Madden NFL 24, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. It was around 2022, 2023 where I first played Kirby games, and they're pretty nice and easy, and that's how I like my games, nice and easy. So got into the top 5, and this last one, of all the games on this list, this one has the shortest amount of time, just 2.6 hours, but I thought it was good enough to warrant top 5. Plan B Terraform. It's a game on Steam where it's a colony sim where you're on basically Mars, and you have to try and terraform it and connect 3 cities together and help build them up and such, like collecting materials, manufacturing stuff, and get the population of the world up and such. It took a little bit getting used to and such, but it's pretty easy once you figure it out, because I've produced so much stuff, it's crazy. But yeah, pretty addictive even though I haven't played in 2 months. So yeah, my favorite game of 2023 is easily Pikmin 4. Alright, now for 2022. And that is Madden NFL 23. As that was A fun game. It's the only Madden I can play on All Pro pretty much right now, other than Madden 21 somewhat. And of course, I've been doing my Falcons franchise off screen over the last 2 years. Been very fun. Winning every Super Bowl every year except for the first year. Pac-Man World Repack. So fun to play that again. And this was an actual change I did just a moment ago before I did this video. Number 3 is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Beforehand, it was 4th place behind Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but I moved up to 3rd place. Although I still don't think the games are really good. Compared to everything else in 2022, it's better than most of the rest. So barely on there. And Kirby and the Forgotten Land, my first Kirby game, pretty fun, although it's really annoying to get everything. And Planet Crafter. I haven't touched that game in over a year. It's a colony sim game where you're on a planet and you have to collect materials, build stuff, and try and terraform the planet. Kind of like Plan B Terraform, only more detailed and not oriented around cities. It's just making this planet better. Pretty challenging though to survive though. You die pretty easily. Alright, so my top favorite game of 2022 is Madden NFL 23. Now off to 2021. And I forgot to mention, yes, all the Pokemon main series games are going to be organized together. Just so I would let you all know that. So now into 2021. And that, of course, is Mad Games Tycoon 2, number 1, easily one of my favorite business sim games over the last, 10 years or so. Making video games and all that. Oh, it's so addictive. I actually might do a new YouTube series in the future coming up for it. Mario Party Superstars is my favorite Mario Party game. Monster Hunter Rise, my first experience playing the Monster Hunter series when it came out in 2021 for the Switch. I didn't like it at first because it was very difficult, but eventually I sucked it up, dealt with it, and now I like it, and it is my favorite Monster Hunter game. Madden NFL 22, I don't like it compared to 21, but it was enough to get onto the top because there's not really much else for 2021. And this was actually a tough one for the last spot, and I decided for Growing Up. Remember I streamed that back in 2021? It's like a visual novel, choose your own adventure at the same time and such. Growing Up. That was really cool. I need to get back to that. I played a lot of it back in May, around World Finals 23, but I haven't touched it since. And now for honorable mentions, Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, which I have on the Switch. Yes, I have on the Switch, which has GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. I have not played San Andreas yet. I haven't touched it in over a year. I only played 3 and Vice City. I could say 3 is much better on the Definitive Edition. Vice City was better. It just, I don't know about necessarily better, but it wasn't a noticeable jump like 3 is, because 3 I don't like. Vice City was still pretty good. I haven't done San Andreas yet, and I still honestly wonder, why did people criticize it so much? Yeah, I know we didn't really want it in the community, but it's not that bad. This was really shat on big time when it came out 4 years ago. Then Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2022. It's basically Professional Football Simulator's updated version. If y'all remember PFA, UFL, which I haven't touched in a while, those games were on Professional Football Simulator. This is the 2022 version and such. And the most recent one I have and such. I don't think it's as good as the Pro Football Simulator that I played before, but it's still good. Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. I streamed that series, and it's also on PC. I want to try and get back to that very soon. And this was a funny addition that I started playing this last few months ago. Wife Quest. It's on Steam. It's on Switch too, but I decided to do it PC primarily. It's a platformer where you play as a woman who's after monsters that kidnapped her husband though. Oh, it's so funny. Mia's always so jealous because they're all a bunch of monster girls and they always flirt with Fernando. It's so hilarious. I just can't stop laughing, even though it is kind of challenging too at the same time. Alright, so my top 21 game, of course, Mad Games Tycoon 2, easy question. Now on to 2020. And that is Retro Bowl on the Switch. Retro Bowl, it's like a new version of Tecmo Bowl, American football. And as you all remember, back last year where I did my Panthers franchise, I've been simulating this like crazy. And I need to get back to it. I haven't touched it in a month. It is so addictive fun doing simulation and building up teams and all that. It's honestly quick fun. Almost rivals Madden somewhat. It's like a quick version of Madden, just get it done and out with. Get a few seasons done in the same amount of time it does do a few games. Fall Guys, of course, awesome. Need to get back to playing. I actually tried playing earlier back in February, but it won't work for me on the PC because Easy anti-cheat's not installed when it is, so I have to play on the Switch, which is really annoying. Madden NFL 21, of course. Command Conquer the Remastered Collection, which is a remastered version of the first 2 Command Conquer games. Much better than the original games. It makes it so much easier. And then Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which of course is the collection updated versions too, somewhat, of Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. And of course, I've beaten 64 twice on Sunshine once. I have not beaten Galaxy yet because I didn't really get it for Galaxy. I got for the first 2 games. And of course, the honorable mentions, Pokemon Clover. That ROM hack me and Am did a playthrough in 2023. Very freaking hard, but it's also unbelievably funny. Kingdoms Reborn. I did streams for that too. Colony Sim and such. I played that back in December after getting back to it. And I'm doing the best results I've ever done. I need to get back to it. Teardown. I haven't touched that in over a year. The game where you're supposed to do like grand heists and stuff like that in like in a little bit of a time period. And destroy stuff while you do it, but mostly I just tear down stuff. It's just too much fun. Space Architect, I played that back in December. Same time I got Car Manufacturer. I know the game to refer it, compare it to, but I don't remember this name off the top of my head. But basically, you have to collect like materials in space from like meteors and all that to build a spaceship to sell off a massive loan you have. It's addictive, but it's also really annoying because my colonies keep dying because they're not getting any food or water, even though I have food and water everywhere. They just won't eat or drink for some reason. It's getting really annoying. And Minecraft Dungeons, which is an RPG version of Minecraft. It's fun, but man, is it really hard at times too. You gotta like grind like crazy, which is really annoying. But yep, my favorite game of 2020 is Retro Bowl, just edging out Fall Guys. Alright. Now we get into 2019, and oh boy, I'm not really happy about having this as my number 1, but compared to everything else, there really is there's no other choice, and I'm not looking forward to saying this, but my favorite game of 2019 is Pokemon Sword and Shield. Ugh! I really don't want it up there, but there's nothing else to compare to. Madden NFL 20, I like it better than Madden 19, but it's not good enough in comparison. Astroneer, I gotta get back to my playthrough of that. I haven't touched that in a year. It's good, but just not good enough. Yu-Gi-Oh! Legacy of the Duelist, Link Evolution, the only Switch game I play on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pretty much. I like it, but it's just not enough. And then finally, Political Process, which I played a lot a few weeks ago. It's like a text-based game where you run as a fictional politician to run for different offices as in America, Congress, Senate, even President, and other small stuff and such. I really don't want to have Sword Shield up there, but like there's just nothing else. It's just a weak year for 2019, unfortunately. Honorable mentions are Yoshi's Crafted World. It's fun, but man, it's annoying. It's annoying to 100% everything because I have to look up guides and all to make sure where to find everything, and I don't like doing that. Transport Fever 2, I only did 4 hours on it. It's basically a transport simulation game where you build like trains, trucks, planes, ships, and all that, transport goods and all that, and make money. Well, I don't know. I can't say it's very fun yet. It's better than the first game by a landslide, but I need to play it more in order to say. And Nesse, as I'm pronouncing it, that's a really good game. It's on Steam. It's basically a poor man's version of Minecraft, as I would call it. Build a house, collect items and stuff like that, go into caves, kill mobs and such. Although I think there's more of like a story element to it. I need to get back to it where I haven't touched in a year and such, but it's pretty damn good. Honestly, if I played this, unless something else pops up that I haven't played in 2019 yet, I think Transport Fever 2 has the best chance to eventually take over number 1 over Swish. Like, I need to play it more, but this list for 2019 is very weak, and it can easily change if I played more games in 2019. But right now, as much as I hate to say it, Swish is the best game in my eyes of 2019. Now, in the words of Barry McCockner, now excuse me while I go throw up. Alright, now let's get to happy times again. Best game of 2018 is Wreckfest! That awesome, like, demolition racing game, although sometimes there are a lot of dirty players on it, which really annoys me, but it is so much fun. Haven't touched that, God, since, like, I think I last played the day before World Finals 23, I need to play it again. Pokemon Crystal Clear, a ROM hack of Crystal, and it's really cool. You can pick a different starter. It's wide, it's open world where you can go take on any of the gym leaders and stuff you want, which is really cool, and it does it better unlike Scarlet and Violet, since it actually has scale and levels for the gym leaders. The only problem I have with it is that the wild Pokemon, however, are not scaled. They really need to fix that. Monster Hunter World, really good. Age of History 2, I started playing this a lot, like last week or so. It's this previous version of Age of History free. It's, by and large, I don't think that good. It's just way too hard to do wars and all that because the AI always have these stupid, massive AI stacks that I can never afford, and it's really not fun when my armies get destroyed with no problem because my armies are never big enough because I can't afford it, yet the AI just affords it like casually. It's really game crippling. And this was actually a tough one between Kirby Star Allies and House Flipper. But I think I enjoyed Kirby Star Allies slightly more, and that's why it edged out to the top. Another Kirby game. It's kind of like Return to Dreamland Deluxe, but you can have free allies at the same time helping you out. Although sometimes it's a little annoying because all those allies on your screen kind of screws up my vision, and I end up dying, falling off the map because I can't get lost of where I'm at. But still good and all that. And of course, House Flipper. I did a stream series on it. Need to get back to it. I don't know if my computer can handle streaming it though, but do jobs, clean up house and all that, buy houses, flipping them, all that. It's pretty good. I know there's a sequel came out recently, but I just haven't played it yet. But just missed out. If I didn't play Kirby Star Allies before, House Flipper easily would be on this list. Alright, so 2018, my favorite game is Wreckfest. Now on to 2017, and heads up, we are now entering, for the next 20 years, the Pokemon Zone, where all the main series Pokemon games are going to be #1 no matter what. So if you're a Pokemon hater, you are not going to like this list, but if you're a huge Pokemon fan like me, you're going to absolutely love it. So now, 2017 is Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the last good main series Pokemon games. But after that, of course, there's nothing really else. This was a very weak year for games for me. It's so weak that I had to actually add a couple eroge to the list. So for all of you who don't know, because I've talked about this before, eroge are pornographic Japanese visual novels. Basically, choose your own adventure, point and click, and you follow like different pathways to a story, and eventually you end up with like a certain woman you fall in love with and stuff like that. So anyways, the two on here are really, really, really funny. Fashion Little Miss Lonesome. Basically the plot. Oh, this is going to be hard to talk about because it's so funny. There's two men at school. One of them's obsessed with like fashion. And they're obsessively, almost to the point of stalking, this lonely girl who is a loner and have her like dress up in her clothes and all that and such. And she kind of goes along with it because she's a loner and all that. But man, I haven't finished reading it yet, but man, it's really, really, really funny. The Alsagno, of course, if y'all remember, I made a monster truck out of that several years ago. And drove it in the only season I competed in AM's RSPS. It's another funny series at some it's kind of difficult to describe, but it has a lot of magic involved and all that. It is pretty funny though, although I think the sex scenes are a little bit not good enough, though, but it makes up for the funniness of it. Nexomon is a Pokemon variation. Pretty good artwork, too, and such. But I haven't touched it in almost 2 years now, but it's good enough to make the cut. And finally, Madden NFL 18. That was the first good Madden in like 5 years or so, when I played on my dad's PS4 back in 2019, but I haven't played it since. And it just barely made the cut. There's nothing else in 2017. Like I said, 2017 is so weak that 2 eroge had to make the cut. And that was barely. Alright, so 2017 best game was Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. And now for 2016. It's Pokemon Sun and Moon. And this list is full of Pokemon. So of course, Pokemon Sun and Moon began Gen 7. Gen 7 such. Pokemon Gaia ROM hack. I've done a YouTube series in 2023, remember? And of course, I did a Nuzlocke co-op with someone back in 2016 when it wasn't finished. Pokemon Uranium, another ROM hack. Actually, no, it's not a ROM hack. It's an RPG Maker game. I did a YouTube series back in 2016. I haven't touched it since 2019, but it was good enough to make the cut. Momon Platinum. It's Pokemon Platinum, but Momon like updated sprites of anime girls. You all remember I did a playthrough of this last year after being delayed for like 8 years. And finally, Mad Games Tycoon, the first version of Mad Games Tycoon. It's nowhere near as good, however, as the second game, but it was good enough to just make the list. And that was a pretty tough one, even though there's no honorable mentions and such. So, top favorite game of 2016, Pokemon Sun and Moon. And now for 2015 is Pokemon Infinite Fusion. And by the way, this was another update, as before I made this video, it was BeamNG number 1. And I didn't, and Pokemon Infinite Fusion was number 2, but I didn't play it enough in order to say if it's better than Beam. But after playing it a lot like the last 2 months, especially finishing my YouTube series and doing one of my off-screen games right afterwards, Pokemon Infinite Fusion did just enough to take over the number 1 spot. As it's going through Kanto, but you can fuse Pokemon together. It is so fun making custom fusions and Pokemon such. And of course, BeamNG's number 2. Haven't really played it much in the last, 2, 3, 4 years or so, because it is dead on my computer. Can't handle it anymore and such. But it's fun to do monster trucks and such. Pokemon Solar Light Lunar Dark, another awesome RPG Maker game with 350 Pokemon such. And of course, remember I did a YouTube series back in 2019-2020. Momon Emerald, it's just like Momon Platinum and Momon Fire Red Revive underneath. They're basically Emerald and Fire Red, just with anime girl sprites replacing them, just like Momon Platinum and such, their own versions. But yep, they were very good and nothing else made the cut. So my favorite game of 2015, for one moment it was BeamNG, but now Pokemon Infinite Fusion takes over. Alright, now for 2014 is Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and a pretty weak list and such. Because after that, it's more like a default option. Mario Kart 8, I think it's the best Mario Kart game. And then finally, the third one, this is a very big surprise, Sims 4. I remember when this game came out in 2014, it was shitted on, and it was absolutely deserved. It was a horrible version of Sims when it came out. 10 years later, it's somewhat recovered, and I played it a bit over the last few years, especially since they made it free on Steam again. And I think now, after playing it over the last few years, I don't think it's the worst version, the worst Sims game anymore. I think Sims 3 is the worst. Sims 4 did just enough recently to just edge out to be no longer the worst game of the series. And 2014 being so weak that Sims 4 actually made top 5 in this list. Man, I never would have thought, if I made this list 10 years ago, this would never be possible. Absolutely not, but it actually did. Sid Meier's Civilization Beyond Earth. Haven't touched it, played this game in over 2 years. If all of you don't remember, I did a lot of streams playing Civilization. It's a turn-based strategy game where you run countries. As I'm sure you realize, that's a big genre of mine. But this time, it's like a sequel to Alpha Centauri, where instead of on Earth, you do civilizations on an alien planet and such. And finally, this was just a default option, Monopoly Plus. That game is shitted on Steam, I think. And I have it on Switch too, but I associate more with PC. And it's just Monopoly. It's good enough. There's nothing wrong with it. As it was just nothing else to say for 2014. So, number 1 favorite game of 2014 is Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Now for 2013 is Pokemon X and Y, the first games of Gen 6. And the games that got me my 3DS, I had to wait a month though in order to get, because I didn't have the money to get all the stuff for it. And then number 2, this is a tough one, and that's EU4. Not really a big fan of it. It's the second best grand strategy game Paradox made, but it's nowhere close to Vicky 2. It is really, really difficult. But compared to the rest of the list, as a grand strategy, it got the cut. Third is Pikmin 3, which of course, at the time I thought was the best Pikmin game, but now Pikmin 4 destroys it. But hey, Pikmin 3 is still awesome. Onigiri! A Japanese online MMORPG. Of course, I played that since 2014. Thank you still, Cyber Origins, or whatever, for, taking down the servers and deleting my account from 2014, so I play on Steam now. I haven't played it was good enough to make the list. And finally, this one, GTA 5. Honestly, my view of Grand Theft Auto over the last few years has gone down a lot, especially with 5. I wouldn't be surprised in another 5 years or so that this is not even in the top 5 anymore. It's still awesome, the story mode, but I'm not a fan of the GTA Online. It sucks ass. And the story mode is not enough to compensate for it, as my view of it went down massively. Honorable mentions: Game Dev Tycoon. It was the first video game business sim I played, and I thought it was awesome. Until I found Mad Games Tycoon 2, which destroyed it. Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, the last Sly Cooper game. I did a YouTube series over the last few years. I just finished in November. I said in that series, gameplay-wise, it's better than 3, but story-wise, it's worse than 3. So it could depend on what you think. It's either the worst game of the series or the second worst. Bravely Default, I haven't touched that in over 8 years almost. Bravely Default is a Japanese RPG on the Switch. I have the sequel on the... No, it was 3DS. The sequel's on the Switch. It's just like a Final Fantasy-like game. Or JRPG and such. Haven't finished it either. And then Super Mario 3D World. I almost considered putting this over GTA 5. It was very, very, very close to being 5th place. Because I do like it more recently over the last few years than GTA 5. But overall, historically, I liked 5 more. So that's why it just got edged out. And it's a sequel to Super Mario 3D Land, a 3D version of the platforming games of the Mario series, instead of it just being a straight line. I wish they made more Super Mario 3D games like this, because that's my favorite of the series. Not the main Super Mario games. I'm not a fan of them. They're too hard. This, however, was just right along with 3D Land, and I wish they would make more of them. So my favorite game of 2013 is Pokemon X and Y. Now for 2012, which is going to be a weak year. And once again, the list is so weak that not only did I have to include Eroge on the list, but I don't even have 5 games on here. The last games of 2012 were so bad, I could not even put them even in honorary mentions. It's that bad. Anyways, 2012, of course, number 1, Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, no surprise. Pokemon Conquest, I got that game the same day I got Pokemon X and Y the year later. And I did a YouTube series back in 2022, 23. It's pretty cool. It's a tactical RPG. It's Pokemon combined with a Japanese video game franchise. I can't remember its name off the top of my head. It's tile-based, where you have to place Pokemon on a certain tile to do certain attacks and all that. It's pretty fun, although it's kind of difficult and time-consuming at the same time to grind up. Now we get to the Eroge, If My Heart Had Wings. Another Eroge visual novel, takes place in a school, and it's about a couple classmates trying to run a club where they built a glider to try and find and fly through a cloud called a Morning Glory, which is a very rare cloud formation in the world. It's like a swirling cloud of rope. It only happens in I think it only happens in like northern Australia and such. It's a very rare cloud formation, and they're trying to basically fulfill the goal of like students from 20 years ago to fly through Morning Glory. It's really good. The music's awesome and such. Yeah, pretty awesome. But if you ever get this game, make sure to patch it, because Manga Gamer did a horrible job translating it and censor it too. And now we get to the last one, 2012. Oh man, Boob Wars. And I don't have the artwork for it for the picture, and I can't use it because it's not safe for work. It's pornographic on the cover. Oh my god, this game is so stupid and funny. The plot is, I'm gonna have a hard time keeping my composure up. This is so silly. Basically, in this game, the world is divided by 2 continents. One is full of women with huge tits. The other island is flat-chested, and they're at war with each other. Basically, mostly over the control of a smaller island to the south. And you play a protagonist that's part of a terrorist group that's called the Errorist. Who's trying to bring peace between the 2 countries by having them as his personal harem. It's too fucking funny. And unlike the other ones that I mentioned, it's a card game. It actually does have an actual video game aspect for it. It's not just reading, picking yes or no or whatever. There actually is a combat system in the game that involves cards and such. It was actually pretty interesting, although some of them are kind of challenging when I did, but oh my god, just thinking of this game. And there's a sequel too, which I don't think is as funny. It's even more sillier somehow. I really didn't want to put it on there, but it was just too funny to ignore. Please, 2012 have better games. So the best game of 2012, of course, Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. Alright, now let's get to 2011. 2011 is Minecraft, which, of course, I did not play till 2022. I don't think there's really much to say about it. Minecraft, of course, one of the highest selling video games of all time. Saints Row the Third, of course, the third version of the Saints Row series. Of course, did a playthrough 3 years ago of the first game. I think Saints Row the Third is the best game of the series, and I got on the Switch at the end of 2023. And it's, like I said, it's awesome. I hope to one day do a YouTube series on it. It's basically GTA, but more sillier and such. And this game really gets, like, silly with it. Like, they really start becoming, like, we're the opposite of GTA. But the fourth game, oh boy, that's when they go really insane and jump the shark, I think. And Madden NFL 12, first Madden in a while. This was the last good Madden until 18, I said. So you have to wait, like, 6 years in my eyes before you got another good Madden game. Now, between 10 and 12, so the Madden games of 29 to 2011, I think this is the worst in terms of gameplay. I can't pass the ball for shit, even on pro difficulty. They never catch it, but I could run the ball like crazy. The game is heavily biased towards running game, which I'm not a fan of. It should be more balanced. But in terms of franchise mode, where you can edit players, which was the first in a long time in the series, that made it really good. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. It's not good in terms of gameplay, but run a franchise, which I like, and Simon, it's actually somewhat solid. Mario Kart 7, I haven't touched that in almost 8 years, just another Mario Kart game. And Super Mario 3D Land, which I mentioned earlier with 3D World. The list of 2011 was bad enough that it actually got into the top 5. Honorable mentions are Grand Prix Story. I think they're called Cryosoft or something like that. They produce a lot of, like, very cheap business sim-like games, which of course I'm into that stuff, and they're basically all the same thing. And this one involves owning a racing team. It's actually, in terms of gameplay, probably the most unique in the series instead of just running a business sim. It was solid and such. And finally, this is the newest game on the list. I actually added this like a week or some time ago recently when I was making updating the list again, and that is Sengoku. Someone on Steam gave me a key for this game 2 years ago, and I didn't start playing until this January. It's basically Crusader Kings, but in Japan only. It's a grand strategy game. It's like Vicky 2, but it only takes place in Japan with your goal of uniting the country of the warlords and become the great shogunate. It's a mix of really difficult, kind of easy at the same time. It's pretty complicated. I haven't gotten to take over all of Japan yet because, man, you gotta try and figure out how to control like dominant superpowers on the islands. It's pretty difficult. I haven't been able to quite figure it out yet. The system to do it. It's really difficult. But I thought it did just enough to get an honorable mention. Maybe if I figure it out more and play more, I think it could easily get into the top 5. I really think it has a chance. But right now, it's not enough. And best game of 2011 is Minecraft. And now for 2010. And this one, oh boy, this was a tough one. This one was a very difficult number 1 option to have. But of course, it has to be by default. Sorry, Vicky 2. That is Pokemon Black and White. Man, that really hurts that Vicky 2 is not number 1. It really, 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 really hurts me. It's my favorite grand strategy game, but sorry, you can't beat Pokemon. I really wish Black and White came out in 2011. This would be easily Vicky 2. But yeah, Pokemon Black and White's number 1. Vicky 2's number 2. Those were the obvious. Civilization 5 is... That was actually my first game I got on Steam back in around Thanksgiving 2012. It's the 5th version of Civilization, and I think the last good Civilization game, because Civ 6 I don't like it. Civ 5 is good, but I don't think it's as good as like the previous 4 games of the series. But it's good enough. It's actually the first Aero game I actually played, and of course I made a truck about a few years ago. Basically, it involves 5 delinquents that eventually form a band and all that and such. And that's what the band's called, Deerdrops. So, and finally the last one on the list, Monster Jam Path of Destruction, the last Monster Jam game I played. And of course, it was the first game in the series where you can make like your own custom trucks, which was a cool feature. It was good and all that, although I haven't touched it, God, since 2011. it's probably not that good anymore, especially when you have ROR and BeamNG, and I will never play another Monster Jam game until it's like ROR or Beam. Path of Destruction was the last one, and that was, of course, before I really got into ROR. That was like the last saving grace for Monster Jam in that regard. Alright, so 2010, best game, Pokemon Black and White. And now we get to the very short 2009 on Heart Gold and Soul Silver. As obvious list, this list is very short because there was really nothing in 2009. Anyways, number 2 is Pro Football Simulator. I got that in 2014, and that's the game I do PFA, UFL, and such. It is very, 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 very fun. I think that in some ways, it's even better than Madden. Madden is better in terms of gameplay, but if you want to run a league where you can make your custom teams, custom everything, Pro Football Simulator is the best game in terms of that regard. Easily better than Madden. Now, unfortunately, you can't get it anymore because they no longer sell it after 2015, which kind of is annoying and such. And also, at the moment, my leagues are kind of locked on since I can't import them yet to the newer games, which is going to be a little bit of a problem down the line in the future. So that's going to be a problem. And of course, Madden 10, that was the best Madden of the 09, 11 series. And that was my first real Madden I played after Madden 04. Absolutely awesome. Although I can't really play it anymore because the gameplay is too slow. And franchise-wise, it's not really that good. I could do like a whole video of my problems with the Madden franchise series. And Madden 10 has those problems. But in terms of gameplay, back then, it was really, really, really good. But now I can't really play it much anymore because it's too slow. So my favorite game of 2009, of course, is Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver. Now for 2008. Pokemon Platinum. And of course, number 2, easy option, is Spore. I remember like in 2007, 2008, before this game came out, I was so hyped about it, and I enjoyed every moment about it. I don't know why people shit on it so much when it first came out. It is absolutely awesome. Madden NFL 09, my most played Madden 2, because my off-screen franchise, remember I did several years ago. On the PSP, I only played on. It's not really necessarily good playing, and it's really bugged out and such, but in terms of running the franchise, it does several things that other bands back then wouldn't do, especially, accurate playoff stand-ins, which is a big thing that I care very deeply about. And then we get to the Command & Conquer series, like the last 2 good Command & Conquers before the series died. And this was a tough one between Kane's Wrath and Red Alert 3, because I don't think Red Alert 3 is as good as people in the series think it is. I don't think Kane's Wrath is as good as people think it is either. But I edged out Red Alert 3 more because I beat the game before and such. Man, if I could just get Kane's Wrath done, I think I might like it more because of Global Conquest mode, because that mode is so awesome. But Red Alert 3 right now edges out. And now for honorable mentions, Saints Row 2, the sequel to Saints Row. I don't know if I'm going to keep this on there much longer. It's better than the first game, but I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be good enough later on to be on this list. But for right now, it's good enough. Super Smash Bros. Brawl, that and Melee are my favorite Smash games before they start doing stuff I don't like in the series. GTA 4, oh man, I remember how hyped this game was when it first came out. I'm not really a big fan of it. The big problem, of course, is the realistic driving, which really hurts and such in that game. Also, I don't like the cheat system where you have to type on the phone, and if you got shot, it cancels it out, so it really makes it more difficult and such. It's good, but it's just not that good anymore after all these years later. Mario Kart Wii, I loved it when it came out, but after a while, when I got to like 150cc, oh my god, that game got so stupidly hard. I really don't like it as much anymore. Who knows, maybe I'll play it again, but probably be better. Monster Jam Urban Assault, it's like the sequel to Monster Jam. It was good, but it's nowhere good enough compared to top 5 to get into the list, unlike Path of Destruction. So, best game of 2008, Pokemon Platinum. And now for 2007. One, but in the end, I decided Command & Conquer Tiberium Wars, the last undeniably good Command & Conquer game, as it's the sequel to Tiberian Sun, and it was the first Command & Conquer game in like 4 years. I remember waiting patiently when I came back home from Vegas after World Finals 8 to get it when I came back because I pre-ordered it. Man, I played that like crazy. It is awesome. Like the last really undeniably good Command & Conquer game. Halo 3 just got edged out. I remember Halo 3. Oh my god, I played like crazy. My favorite Halo game. It's the only first-person shooter to Halo series that I actually like. Any other first-person shooters I'm not into except Halo. Halo just missed out on getting number 1 because Command & Conquer means more to me. Monster Jam, of course, that was the first game in 4 years. Class of 2007 being weak enough that it got the list. So yeah, Monster Jam was pretty good, although I don't think it would be good later on if I ever played again. The Sims Pet Stories. It's Sims, but it's a story mode, and there's like 2 stories you have to do on it. And it's like more story oriented. It's not open action like normally Sims does. But I thought it was good enough to get to the list. And then we get to another eroge. As it's Kira Kira. It's basically the exact same thing as I mentioned Teardrops earlier. Only this time it involves students in a high school that unite together and make a band. And they actually travel up and down Japan for the main part of the story to go to concerts and all that to perform. And actually, Kira Kira and Teardrops are so connected that they actually intertwine with their stories to the point where they had a expansion release of Teardrops where it involves them for like their creator's 5th year anniversary and such. They're intertwined and such. So yeah, Kira Kira is funny and all that. The one thing I don't like is that it did a very common thing that eroge and visual novels back in the late 90s, early 2000s would do, which I fucking hate, where unlike visual novels nowadays where they have like the text box with people saying at the bottom of the screen, they had it covering the entire screen when they were talking, so you could barely even see the background. Even of the sex scenes, they would do that too. And I really hated it. That was like the one thing they fucked up really bad with Kira Kira. But other than that, it was funny and good. Alright, so best game of 2007, Command & Conquer Tiberian Wars, and now the 2006, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Oh man, awesome as always, Pokemon. Number 2 is Bully. I remember wanting to get that game so bad in 05, but got delayed a year. Thank you, Jack Thompson. But Bully is awesome. I got just recently on Steam, and I hope to get back to playing it again. Wii Sports, this was like a default option at this point. Oh man, I'm sure everyone who got a Wii when it came out in 2006 played this game like crazy. I remember playing bowling and stuff with my dad all the time throughout the rest of 2006. Saints Row. Of course, remember I did a YouTube series of this back in 2022? Before the series, I probably would have put number 3 over Wii Sports. But I don't like it as much anymore. It's the worst of the series. Actually, I don't know if I'd say it's the worst. I still have bad feelings about 4. If I get around to playing it, maybe my view will be different of it. But it's definitely one of the worst. Very hard. The controls really suck. And finally, the last eroge on the list too, if you're all concerned about it, Edelweiss. As it was actually the first eroge I got. I read it, I started reading it the day of World Finals 13. I was reading this for hours, waiting for World Finals 13 to happen. What a night that was. Edelweiss, of course, was the first game of the creators of Kira Kira, Teardrops, and all them I just mentioned earlier. They're all interconnected. Edelweiss takes place at originally an all-girls school that eventually just went co-ed, and it's a magical school on a magical island that floats over off the coast of Japan, and it's run with the goal of alchemy. Kind of like Harry Potter somewhat. It's magical and all that. And it is absolutely hilarious, slapstick, violent comedy and all that. But funny thing though, the endings, this is a common thing too with like ecchi series, and anime do this too all the time. It starts off very funny, very ecchi and all that. But then when you get near the end of the series, especially the endings for all the 5 girls in the series, it's actually very, very dark. Oh my god. One of the girls one of the girls leads to you dying. The other one gets crippled. The other one dies and comes back to life through alchemy. The other one dies, and the other one goes on a violent, murderous rampage that kills like half the students in the school. Yeah. Talk about a wild change in the story to being funny and all that to darkness. It's just so weird how they do that. But yeah, Edelweiss was really funny. Honorable mentions, Madden NFL 07, the only other Madden I played in 04 back in the mid-2000s, and for the same reason, building teams, custom teams, and run franchise and all that. It's just not as nostalgic as Madden 04 was when we get to it later on. The Godfather on the Wii, that actually was pretty good on the Wii. Like one of the few games I'll say did motion controls really well. Takes place after the Godfather series. It's kind of like GTA, where you go around doing sandbox missions and all that, and trying to extort people to make money. It's actually not that bad. Destroy All Humans 2, the sequel to Destroy All Humans. If y'all remember, I did a YouTube series on the first game in 2022. I don't think it's as good as the first game. I do want to do a YouTube series on it in the future, but I just haven't done it yet. So, 2006 best game is Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. And now we get to the next 3 years of 05 for 03. And this list, oh boy, it's going to be huge in terms of honorable mentions, because these 3 years coming up are huge. So, 2005, odds of course, no surprise, for Monster Trucks. I remember playing it back in August 2008, which is probably before any of you played it beforehand. Probably never heard about it back in 2008, before Monster Trucks got into it and such. But yeah, Riggs and Rods, awesome. Civilization 4, I think up there is like, it was my first Civilization game I first played in 05. I think it's up there as like one of the best in the series for my first game. Although I don't know if it's number one, which we'll get to later on. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, the sequel to Pokemon Coliseum. This was originally going to probably be number 4 on the list, but it edged out Yu-Gi-Oh! Nightmare Troubadour, which is number 4. Yu-Gi-Oh! Would have been number 3 most likely, but after doing my YouTube series last year, my view of the game really went downhill after that. And I don't like it as much as I used to, because it was so freaking hard and such at the end. And I haven't played this game in over 10 years. Nintendogs. It was like one of the... It's a pet simulation game where you have puppies, and you have them... take care of them, have them make money by doing contests and stuff like that. I kid you not. Pretty much from when I first got the game, August 2005 to September 2006, I would play that almost every day. I would spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on it. To the point where I think that 1,000 hours I estimate I put on there might actually be underestimated. I really play that a lot. I really like that game, and I would play it more. I would even consider maybe doing a YouTube series on it, but it's kind of like open-ended and never ends, really. And the big problem I hate about Nintendogs is that you have to play that game all the time. It's time, based. So if you don't play the game after a few days, your puppy will run away because you didn't take care of it and such. Like that was a stupid feature to have on. I have a Switch game that's like Nintendogs, but doesn't have that time thing on, and it's so much better in comparison. Alright, honorable mentions. Juiced. And I'm actually bringing up both of them too together. Juiced and Midnight Club 3. They're both street racing games where you buy cars and tune them up to make them better and all that and such. Although Juiced is like sanctioned racing where it's like enclosed tracks on it. Midnight Club 3 straight up is racing it in cities where it's wide open. Juiced looks better to play. Midnight Club 3 is more arcade-ish, has more options and such for customizing. I really would put one of these in the top 5, but they're both very hard in different ways, and that's what in the end keeps me from just edging them out. Like, if they were just easier, not rage-inducing, especially you, Midnight Club 3. Even though I beat in that game, Midnight Club 3 is very, 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 very hard. It's like one of the few games that are very hard that I can actually say I beat. Very, very, very frustratingly hard. Age of Empires 3, it's basically Command & Conquer, but takes place in the colonial age. MX vs. ATV Unleashed, I haven't touched that in almost over 3 years now. I remember did a YouTube video on it a few years ago when I got back again for the Xbox. It's a racing game where you drive dirt bikes, ATVs, and, of course, main reason, monster trucks. Destroy All Humans, of course, I did a YouTube series on that, where it's like GTA, but you play as Crypto as he takes over Earth for brains. Madagascar, this is a wild one. Madagascar was the game that came out 2005 for the Madagascar movie that came out. I remember I got it the same week when me and Terrell saw that movie. I haven't played the story mode. I haven't played a game in a long time. The story mode was good. The game was good. But the main reason I put on the list is because the golf minigame on it. I was so addicted to that golf minigame. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. It was the first Mystery Dungeon game I played of it. I like it, but it's very hard. I wish I would like a lot more if they made it more towards like the main series Pokemon games where you gain experience normally and level up quicker and such. It would make it a lot easier. And finally, this one barely made the cut. It's The Movies. It's a business sim game where you run a movie studio to make movies. I want to like it. It's really cool, but it's very, very, very hard too. Of all the business sim games I played, I think it's the most hardest of the series. And I wish, because I found a whole bunch over the last few years, a whole bunch of video game developers have been making a whole bunch of like business sim games we run movie stews. I need to play a couple demos of them, but there really needs to be another game like this, because nothing can beat the movies. But man, the movies is so hard. I wish there was something else to beat it. Alright, so my favorite game of 2005, Rigs of Rods. And now for the big one. The hardest list that took me a long time to make. The Holy Grail, 2004. Where this list is so big that literally almost every single one of these games, I could make the argument being top 5. It's insane. So here we go. Biggest list, 2004. So, of course, number 1, Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Emerald. Both games came out in 2004. Fire Red, Leaf Green in Japan, January 2004, and then Emerald came out that September. So they all are together, as I always have the Pokemon games all listed together. Number 2, this was like the only other easy option, The Sims 2. My favorite Sims game and such. Best of the series. Of course, I have an off-screen neighborhood where I have like 150 Sims. I started back in 2009. It's so fun. Now this is where it gets really tough. OpenTTD. It's the fan updated version of Transport Tycoon Deluxe from 1994. Of course, you all remember my YouTube series I've been doing lately on it. It is awesome. Sly 2 Band of Thieves, the best Sly Cooper game. It is so fun. Open world and platformer kind of like GTA. Man, Sly Cooper Band of Thieves is so awesome. And then Locomotion, which is the sequel to Transport Tycoon Deluxe. So effectively the sequel to OpenTTD, the last game that Chris Scheuer made and such. It's kind of like, it's just like OpenTTD, but it's based upon Roller Coaster Tycoon with the tiles and such. Although a lot of people didn't like that game when it came out. I really liked it. I feel kind of dirty having 2 business sim games together, especially 2 sequels. But compared to the rest of them, like I said, this list was very tough to make. Honorable mentions, oh my god, like I said, every one of these could probably make the top 5, depend on my mood. GTA San Andreas, of course, for a long time, I thought was the best GTA game. I still kind of think it might still be, I think, the best GTA game I've played, but my view of the game has gone down quite a bit. Most of GTA has gone down quite a bit, except one, which we'll get to in a little bit. Pokemon Coliseum, of course, the prequel, the XD Gale of Darkness. I remember when I first got that game, because I remember, just like with Tiberian Wars earlier mentioned, I had to wait like a week to play a game when it came out, because it came out when we were in Vegas for World Finals 5, so I had to wait a whole week before I could play it. I did not like Coliseum at first when it first came out, because it was very hard. I don't like it as much as XD, that's why it didn't make the top 5, but it's a lot better now over the years later when it first came out. But man, it was really difficult first. Driver Free! The final game, well, not the final game, but like the main final game of the Driver series. I remember that game was shit on like crazy when it came out, but for me, I enjoyed it very much. Because all I did was just do the cheat codes and just do sandbox, right? Just drive around cars, do police chase and all that. Oh, it was so much fun and such. Driver Free is so good, actually. I think it's underappreciated. And depending on the mood, it could have been top 5. MX Unleashed, it's the prequel to MX vs. ATV Unleashed. It's basically the same game, just without ATVs. And what really got me, of course, was the monster truck that was in the game. Oh, man! Driving the monster truck in that game was so much fun. That's why I do it. Just sandbox, cheat, open up all the worlds, drive them, get the monster truck. Oh, so fun! Yu-Gi-Oh! Dawn of Destiny. This is definitely, I think, my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Game after Nightmare Troubadour not doing as good. It's just Yu-Gi-Oh! We just duel people. The only thing I don't like about the series is that it's very difficult to get cards. I wish they had like a point system like in Nightmare Troubadour where you could buy booster packs. That would make it a lot easier. But other than that, I think it's the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. Pikmin 2, man, that is the hardest Pikmin 2 game and my least favorite lately. But it's still good enough. Zoo Tycoon 2, oh man, a business sim where you run a zoo. I know Planet Zoo came out in 2019. It's nowhere near as good as Zoo Tycoon 2. This game is awesome. Superpower 2, another like grand strategy game where you run a country in modern day 2001. Oh man, that game is really difficult. You have to like cheese it in order to have like a superpower made and such like that. You can't really like play it legitimately. It's like too impossible, even as America. Test Drive Eva Destruction. I kind of want to do a YouTube series on this one day. It's a driving game where you compete in like demolition derbies and dirt track racing and all that. It's really good. Last time I played it 2 years ago, I actually got the farce, I think, with the best results ever. I need to get back to it. It's really good. The Herbs, the DS version, because the console version is not that good. It's basically Sims. It actually is one of the first DS games I played. It's basically Sims, but you play as one individual character, and it's like a story-driven game, and you live in like the urban area where you have to do stuff for people and such. Yeah, it's really good, although it's kind of time-consuming at the same time. Halo 2, the sequel to Halo, it just wasn't good enough to make the cut. And now we finally get to the games that definitely would be honorable mentions, nowhere near close to being a top 5. Spider-Man 2. Oh, man. That game was very hard. I never beat it. Terrell did. But, man, it was fun just going around New York City, just beating up people and such. Oh, my God. Climbing up Empire State Building. Oh, so much fun. Definitely the best Spider-Man game I ever played. That was so nice for them to do open world in that. That really made it, like, so noticeable. And Shrek 2. One of the games for when Shrek 2 came out. Where it's just a beat-up game where you play 4 characters and you go across a level and just beat up people and such. Some of the boards were pretty difficult, but it's still pretty good. Alright, that was a lot of talking. My 2004 list is finally done. Now on to 2003. 2003 is Madden NFL 2004. This was, for a long time, my favorite Madden because it was the Madden I mostly did franchise on, where I build like a 32-team league of custom teams and just simulate it. Either watch them play or just simulate and such like that. Now, gameplay-wise, I think it's not good. It's so difficult and such that I have to even play it on Rookie to have any chance. Pro is like too difficult. I think when I last played it, and I did not have fun playing it, it did not have like ball assist, ball hawking, and all that stuff, which made it a little bit easier. I remember last time I played, I was winning when I turned it on pro difficulty, but it just wasn't fun. It was just very, very, very unfun to play. Gameplay-wise, I don't think it's good. But just making a 32 league franchise, which I care more about, it was one long time for one of my favorite Mads. It's not as good anymore because the stats suck ass, simulating, and the playoff stats are inaccurate, but it's still too nostalgic for me. Madden 04 definitely is one of my favorite Mads of all time. Command & Conquer General Zero Hour. Up there is one of my favorite Command & Conquer games, which 10 plus years ago, that would have been a very controversial thing to say in the Command & Conquer community. To the point where I could have probably been banned if Discord was around back then. And in a few years, I think this might be number 1 of 2003 over Madden. Just Command & Conquer and such with the General series. Simpsons Hit and Run. Simpsons version of GTA. I haven't touched this in 4 years. I want to do a YouTube series on this eventually, but it's a very difficult game, but it's funny. And of course, Barbie Horse Adventures Wild Horse Rescue, the game that gave me so much shit when I did a YouTube series on it several years ago. People shit because, you're playing a Barbie game. I view it as a horse game first and foremost, not Barbie, so shove it. It's so fun and all that. Kind of difficult to collect everything, going back and forth, but it's a good classic game. That game is shit on for no reason. It doesn't deserve the hate. And Jurassic Park Operation Genesis for the Xbox. Don't play the PS2 version, and honestly kind of don't play the PC version because it's really bugged, unfortunately. But it's a business sim game where you build Jurassic Park. Oh man, that game was so much fun building up parks and then doing cheat codes to launch tornadoes that were destroyed. Oh, it was so fun. I want to play that more, but I have really no way to play it right now and such. That game is so fun. Honorable mentions are Command & Conquer Generals, because Zero Hour is the expansion pack release of Generals. Generals is not as good as Zero Hour. It's not even close in comparison. The Sims Busting Out. Of course, remember I did a YouTube series on that back in 2022? It's the first Sims game, but it's like a story-driven game and all that. I don't think, it was actually my first it was the first Sims game I played. I really liked it when it first came out. I don't like it as much anymore, because Sims 2 absolutely obliterates it and such. But I thought it was good enough to still be mentioned. Monster 4x4 Masters of Metal. That was a good game. Like another Monster Jam game, but I'm a little conflicted on what to say about it, but it still is good. Mario Party 5. At the time, when I played it back then, it was one of my favorite Mario Party games. But it wasn't because of the game, the party mode and all that. I mostly played it for the vehicular combat minigame on there. I would play a story mode, I can't remember how it was because it's been so long since I played, but there was, in order to build up your vehicle, you had to do certain things in the game, and it gave you very little upgrades and all that. But I mostly just focused on the vehicular combat on it. I need to play that again. That game was so fun. My favorite Mario Party game until Superstars. And that was the last Mario Party game I played until Superstars, which is an 18-year gap. Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. That was the first and only Pokemon pinball game I played. It's okay. The pinball game was very difficult. Trail and my dad would always destroy me on Pikmin until I saw freaking Adam a few years ago casually getting an 8 billion score and not even losing. What the fuck, Adam? How did you do that? Even my dad and Terrell couldn't do that. Freaking destroy him. I think one time Terrell got like a billion score, Adam casually got 8 billion and kept going. He only stopped playing and he kept on going. It was so ridiculous. That was wild. Mario Kart Double Dash. That was a cool Mario Kart game where you have two people in a cart and you can alternate like weapons and such. That was one of my favorite Mario Kart games until 8 pretty much. Man, I always do my favorite combo. I remember like I would do like a story mode in my head. My fusion would be Mario and Bowser Jr. and eventually Bowser Jr. went to another teammate and eventually had Diddy Kong as my teammate, which I still do this day. It's so funny. Monster Rancher 4. Something you all probably never heard about. This game, the Monster Rancher series, is probably, I think, the best non-Pokemon, Pokemon-like game of Monstertainment. Although, the combat is very difficult. It's like time-based and tile-based at the same time. It's very difficult. And building up the monsters is really difficult too. I haven't been able to figure out in the 20 years I played, but I really do like it. Monster Rancher is definitely a good series. Tony Hawk's Underground. The only good Tony Hawk game in my experience. I played all the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games when they came out back then. It's Tony Hawk, but it's also story mode and such. It was like really edgy when it came out too. It was like pretty controversial, but man, was it fun and all that. And Donkey Konga. It's a rhythm game, like the only rhythm game I would ever like. It's Donkey Konga. I mean, it's a rhythm game where you got a special bongo controller for the GameCube, and you bang on the bongo or clap to a song on it. Oh man, doing We Will Rock You or Pokemon's first theme. Oh, that was so fun. But man, those layer difficulties got very difficult to beat. Alright, so that's my top games of 2003 with Madden 2004 being the top one. Now for 2002. On Ruby and Sapphire, the first games of Gen 3. I'm actually doing Sapphire off screen like I mentioned before on the tablet. That was like that was the first like downfall of the series, Gen 3, but then Gen 4 revived it somewhat. But man, I remember Gen 3. It was tough being a Pokemon fan back then. Everyone shat on it back then, which really kind of sucked, but Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, awesome. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, the best Roller Coaster Tycoon game, at least for me. Expand on 2 and all that, although Building Parks I thought was a little bit better on the first game, but the second game had more options on it. But 2 definitely is awesome. GTA Vice City is the only Vice City game that I played that I still absolutely love to this day. Vice City, like 3 I didn't really like. San Andreas went down, GTA 4 went down, GTA 5 went down in terms of me over the years after I played them, but Vice City is the only one that still remains awesome. Especially on the Switch version, the Definitive Edition. It is really, really, really good. Stuntman! Of course, driving game where you're a stunt driver trying to do movies and all that. That game was freaking hard as hell, and it's way too hard, and I had never beaten it. But my dad and Terrell beat it, or did at least enough, so I could do the stunt constructor scene where I could drive monster trucks and make my own tracks and all that, crushing cars. That was the main thing I loved about it. That was my main monster truck game until Riggs and Rods. For like that 6-year gap. Let's go! Stuntman, terms of that regard, was awesome. And then Sly Cooper and the Furious Raccoons, the first Sly Cooper game. It's definitely the second best of the series, although it's radically different from the last 3 games. Hard in some areas, but it's still very fun and all that. Definitely deserved. It was a tough one. Honorable mention, Monster Jam Maximum Destruction. I thought when I first made this list that this was going to be the top game in the top 5. If Ruby and Sapphire... No, it was really close, I meant to say. Very, very close to being top 5. I thought I was going to make it, but just got edged out. It's my favorite Monster Jam game, which is ironic because it's the least Monster Truck-like game where it's vehicular combat. I know that, but it's so nostalgic for me, especially the Game Boy Advance version and the PS2 version. Oh, man, I remember those months, first half of 2002, waiting for that game that came out. I got the Game Boy Advance version while on vacation in Florida. I didn't like it at first, but once I learned about machine guns, I loved it. And then when we first got our PS2 in June of 2002, when Maximum Destruction came out for the PS2, I played that like crazy. For a long time, that was definitely my favorite PS2 game, even though 3 PS2 games literally are on this list of 2002. Vice City, Stuntman, and Sly Cooper came out those years, and I loved them so much as well. Max Destruction's awesome. Super Mario Sunshine, of course, the sequel to Super Mario 64. I think it's better than 64, or at least it's easier and such, but just wasn't enough to make the cut. NASCAR Thunder 2003, one of like only 2 NASCAR games I've pretty much played. That was very difficult to like do like the career mode and all that. It was very difficult to win, especially with the pit stops and all that, and not crash and all that. It was very difficult. But man, season mode where I made arcade and I have to worry about crashing. I remember back as a kid doing season mode where I competed in like 4, what was it, the Winston Cup was it called back then? I competed in like 4 seasons and I won the Winston Cup 3 out of the 4 times. So fun. And plus, going arcade mode and just turn around and causing giant crashes and all that. Oh, so fun. Mario Party 4 was the first game on the GameCube. I didn't like it as much compared to the other Mario Party games later on. And I don't like it as much. I played it 2 years ago with hard difficulty. And man, it just wasn't as fun as much. Especially when I didn't use a GameCube controller. ATV Off-Road Fury 2, the prequel to MX Unleashed, which I mentioned earlier, it was pretty good, especially doing the cheat code to unlock that one board with the tornado and turn off crash and all that. Oh, it was so fun. And the train, too, to do backflips off of it. Command & Conquer Renegade, it's the not grand strategy, real-time strategy Command & Conquer game. It's a first-person shooter. It's okay, although I almost beat it. Back in 2007, I was like on the last mission, the very last part, but I could never beat until the computer eventually died and the save was lost. It's very buggy and all that, and crashes a lot, so it's kind of not good, but it was okay just enough, and just for a Command & Conquer game, it did good enough. Impossible Creatures, it's another real... I don't know why I have it as first-person shooter. That's incorrect. It's not a first-person shooter. It's a real-time strategy like Command & Conquer, where your units are made of animals that you combine into other animals. It's actually very more strategic than Command & Conquer because you have to make your units very strategic. I remember my favorite animal I would make was a great white shark combined with a tarantula, even though it really probably wasn't strategic. Story mode on, it's very, very difficult. It's a very hard game. I only gotten to the 3rd mission. There's I think 14 of them. Very, 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 very difficult. You need to make animal units specifically designed for each mission, which is really frustrating and annoying. But the novelty of it still was really cool. And Spider-Man for the GameCube. It's actually... I don't like it as much as 2, although I think story-wise, I think the first game was easier. It's just not open world, but I thought it did good enough to just make the list. So my favorite game of 2002, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Now for 2001. But it was Super Smash Bros. Melee. That and Brawl are my 2 favorite Smash games. The rest are just not that really good. Halo Combat Evolved, one of the first Xbox games I played. That was really fun. Honestly, maybe a few years down the road, I could see it maybe flipping and maybe making Halo Combat Evolved my favorite game. Like I said, Halo's the only first-person shooter I actually like. Every other first-person shooters I'm not really into. Pikmin. I remember growing up, I did not really like Pikmin that much compared to the second game. But now, after being a couple times, I don't think it's the hardest in the series anymore. Because I remember when I first played, it was really hard with the 30-day time limit. Now I think it's the second worst game in the series, instead of being the worst. Pikmin 2 takes it over, at least in terms of difficulty. Luigi's Mansion, that was the first GameCube game I played. And it's pretty easy and fun and all that. And Civilization 3, lately, that's become more of one of my favorite Civilization games. I remember when I got the Collector Edition, which had the first 4 games in 2006. It was my least favorite, but now lately it's moving up on the ranking boards. Those first 4 Civilization games I really like. Again, turn-based strategy where you build countries and all that. Honorable mentions. This one barely made the cut. Command & Conquer Yuri's Revenge, which is the expansion pack for Command & Conquer Red 2. I don't think I would, honestly, looking at it again, I don't know if I'd put it on the honorable mentions. I really don't. Because I'm not the biggest fan of Yuri's Revenge, and I don't like playing as Yuri. His faction sucks. I think it's the worst faction in all of Command & Conquer that I've played. RuneScape, however, this one I almost considered editing and putting in the top 5. RuneScape is, of course, a British MMORPG. It's been around online since 2001, and I've been a member of it since Christmas Eve 2006. It is so awesome. Although I haven't really played much in the 18 years. There was like one point where I went 5 years straight not playing. I started playing like 9 hours in the last like few weeks, trying to get my levels up. I made myself Iron Armored for the first time, and yeah, I need to get a whole bunch of quests done. Even though I've not really done much on it, RuneScape is awesome. Ugh. If it wasn't for the Switch version, I would not have added GTA 3 on here. GTA 3 was my first GTA... Actually, no, I've played the second GTA game, but GTA 3 was the first one I really experienced. I remember loving that game when it first came out because of the open world aspect and all that, and the 3D and such, but like now, all the years later, it sucks ass. Too hard and all that. The only reason I added on the list was just because the Definitive Edition on the Switch made it so much better. Fixed so many problems with it. Almost all of them, actually. Test Drive Off-Road Wide Open. Another one of the first Xbox games I played. It's Test Drive where you just drive around on open world terrain, all that. Man, it was fun driving on the moon when you broke all the signs and all that. There was some like off-road, stadium racing that was pretty cool, but outside of that, there was nothing else to it. Just being sandbox and all that, and the music was awesome. Sonic Adventure 2, the only Sonic game I actually like, and not for the reason that most Sonic fans would probably like it. The game was very difficult. I never beat it. Trell did. The main reason I like it for is because Chow Garden, where you collect animals when you play the main game, and you go to Chow Garden, where you raise chows, and give them animals, and I can't remember what the crystal was called to increase their stats, and have them go to school, compete in, a triathlon. Oh, that was the best part of, Sonic Adventure. Absolutely awesome, just to do the side game. I bet any Sonic fans watching look at me like, oh, you like Sonic Adventure 2 just for that. Yep. And Zoo Tycoon. I also didn't consider almost making a cut with this one. It's the first Zoo Tycoon game. I don't like it as much. It was actually the first Zoo Tycoon game I played for the DS. Back from, December 2005 when I got it for Christmas till, July 2006 until I got Zoo Tycoon 2 on the PC. I play it just as much as Nintendo, every single day. I don't find it as good anymore, even though the DS version is inferior to the PC version. But I thought it did enough to make the cut. And The Simpsons Road Rage, which is Crazy Taxi, but The Simpsons. There is a British YouTuber I saw a few weeks ago that reviews video games, and he reviewed Simpsons Road Rage, and he described it, I think, perfectly. It's fun, but only for a few moments, like a few minutes or stuff. It's not like something you could just play for a while. It's like pick up and then done. It's good and all that, but yeah, that wraps up 2001 with Super Smash Bros. Melee being number 1. And now for 2000. And that is Pokemon Crystal. As Pokemon, of course, number 2 is Command Conquer Rattler 2, one of the favorite Command Conquer games of all time. And honestly, the last few years, I think I kind of agree with that too. Up there with General Zero, it's really good. Mario Party 3, again, just like Mario Party 5, I played that more because of the battle minigame that was in this game too. Kind of remind me of Pokemon. That was the main thing I played for. That was such a main reason that I did not actually win a board game on here, at least to my knowledge, until this last September I did an off-screen game. I won my first confirmed game. I might have gone 23 plus years not playing, win a board game on here. And then Driver 2, which was the acclaimed Driver game. It's really good. I want to play it more, but I can't because 2 disc-based game, which is very difficult with emulators, and there's no way to unlock the Reno and Las Vegas boards without cheats, and even then I can't really quite figure how to get it to work properly. I want to play it more. It probably won't be on the list much longer if other games show up, just because of the limitivity of me not being able to play it and such, which sucks. And then the last one, Pokemon Stadium 2, just barely made the cut, but then again, it's just a default option, because what else is there really? As it's better than the first Pokemon Stadium game, but that's only if you use rentals. Not rentals, if you import your own teams. Otherwise, I think it might be worse than the first game in terms of difficulty, because it's very difficult, with even harder with custom rental teams, especially since they don't have any items and all that. Oh my god, don't remind me too of Challenge Cup. But it did just enough to get in the top 5. Madden NFL 2001, it's my main N64 game. I've never played an actual game on it, and I'm not into playing Madden on those older games. It would probably suck, but simulating a franchise is pretty good, especially the 64 version. Can edit players, they post realistic stats, I could do like seasons afterwards and actual correct brackets for the playoffs, so that's really good. Pokemon Puzzle League, it's Tetris Pokemon themed. Good, but in short bursts. It's very difficult too. Even on the easiest difficulty, I sometimes struggle. NASCAR Rumble, this one, honestly, in the future, might overtake Driver 2, because it's a racing game for NASCAR, but it's like Mario Kart-esque, where it's off-road and you get power-ups and such, which really mess things up, because there are some power-ups in that game that go forever. It's wild. And Mario Tennis, which is tennis for Mario. Played that a lot on the Switch over the last few years, but I haven't played a lot recently because I'm stuck on one cup that I can't beat Birdo on. But yeah, that's my list for 2000, the best game, Pokemon Crystal. And now 1999. And this is honestly probably probably the strongest top 5 of this entire list. 1999, of course, Pokemon Gold Silver, that was not the hard choice. The next hard choice, however, was between my two favorite PS1 games. Toy Story 2 Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue or Bugs Bunny Lost in Time. And that was a very, 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 very difficult choice to pick who is number 1 between these two. Who's going to be number 2? I alternated between both of them. Like, I was really unsure. I actually played Toy Story 2 recently, and I started doing Bugs Bunny Lost in Time again recently. I was thinking about it so hard comparing the two, and I decided just barely, Toy Story 2 Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue is just barely better. Bugs Bunny Lost in Time is more nostalgic for me because I played it before Toy Story 2, but I have to collect more in Bugs Bunny, which is a negative. It's longer, which is another negative. There's more stuff to collect, which is a negative. I have to go back more, which is more of a negative. And some of the stuff is just a little bit harder than Toy Story 2. So there was a bunch of negatives that I decided for Toy Story 2 to be number 2, and Bugs Bunny Lost Times got to sell for number 3. Roller Coaster Tycoon, if it wasn't for the strong class, this would easily be number 2, but because of Bugs Bunny Lost Time and Toy Story 2, it has to go down to number 4. The first Roller Coaster Tycoon game, and watching my dad and uncle play growing up, oh, it's so awesome. I have so many parks on it as a kid. And then finally, 5th place, which if it was any other year would be number 1, Battle Tanks Global Assault. One of the best of the Battle Tanks games, where it's a vehicular combat game where you have tanks, you get power-ups, and the story mode's awesome and all that. It's a really good game. This top 5 list is so good. If this was any other year, any of these games would be number 1. And they have to sell for like 5th place. I feel bad for Toy Story 2, Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue, Bugs Bunny Lost in Time, Roller Coaster Tycoon, and Battle Tanks Global Assault. If this was any other year, they would easily be number 1. Like I said, this is the strongest class. Any of these 5 games could easily be number 1. You have Pokemon, 2 of my favorite PS1 games, 1 of my favorite N64 games, and then Roller Coaster Tycoon. A tough list to beat. So anyways, the honorable mentions, this is a big one too. Pokemon Stadium, I don't think it's as good. I don't think it's good anymore unless you import a team. Now, if you do rentals, I think it's easier than Stadium 2, but if you do import teams, Stadium 2 is better. But it does enough. Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, it was the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game I played. I didn't really like it a lot when it came out. I grew more fond of it over the years. But it's very difficult and it's very grindy. It would be a lot easier if they just made it easier to get cards and such. Super Smash Bros. The first Super Smash Bros. Game I played. I don't like it as much anymore, but it just did enough to make the cut because the controls suck at that game. Especially with the analog stick with Pikachu. Oh, God. Pokemon Snap Rail Shooter, where you take pictures of Pokemon. It's fun. Just for a short bit, though. SimCity 3000, of course. My favorite SimCity game, where it's a city sim where you run a city. I remember that being very hard at first when I first played it, but learning a strategy recently over the last few years, it's been much more tolerable and fun to do. And now we get to some edutainment games. Tonka Construction 2 and Tonka Raceway, which were a big series back in 1997 and 1999 of Tonka, where they made video games about him. Tonka Construction 2 is the sequel to Tonka Construction, which we'll get to later on, where you do like mini games, building up a city and stuff like that. It's really, really, really cool. If it wasn't for this strong class, I would honestly see it could be in the top 5 as well. I really think it's really good, even though I haven't played it that much in a long time. And same goes for Tonka Raceway, kind of like the same thing, but just race and such. That game was really bugged out though a lot of times when I play, which kind of made me not play as much as a kid. Then Beetle Adventure Racing. It's a racing game where you race Volkswagen Beetles. It's actually pretty difficult, but it is pretty fun though when the Beetles blew up too and damaged and all that. That was really cool. Mario Party 2. I actually played 3 before 2, so Mario Party 2 is not as nostalgic for me as of the N64 Mario Parties. But lately playing it now, I think I like it more than 3 and such. But it was enough to make the cut. And then finally, Pac-Man World. I haven't really played the PS1 version of Pac-Man World that much. I mostly played a demo of it as a kid growing up. I don't like as much as the repack version and such. It's been pretty challenging when I play it, and plus my emulator won't save, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to actually try and beat it. But I thought it was good enough to mention somewhat. Maybe if I play and beat it, maybe it could be in the top 5, but I doubt it. Because this, like I said, this is a very strong list. Any of these games would be number 1 if it was any other year. That's how wild it is. Alright, now we get to 1998. And that is Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. The last list of the Pokemon era. Nothing. There are not going to be any other main series Pokemon game number 1 after this. And of course, Red and Blue was the international release of Japanese Red and Green, so it's a separate game. And Yellow came out in Japan in 1998, like a few weeks before Red and Blue came out to America, so they all count together, and that's why they're all together. And then one of my other favorite PS1 games, The Game of Life. That game is so awesome and funny. Monster Truck Madness 2. If this was like 10 plus years ago, I think I actually would consider potentially putting this over Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Gameplay wise, I don't think it's as good, but it's my most played game of all time just because MTWS was on from 2009 to 2020. So I put a lot of time in it just for running MTWS. Gameplay wise, though, however, it's not good, and now that I'm fully over on the Rigs and Rods, it's completely obsolete now. Although I still plan on one day going back, reinstalling the game, and trying to get my older tracks finally updated. They really do need to be fixed. Mario Party, the first Mario Party game I played, it's really fun and all that. If later on, I think I could see us easily taking over Monster Truck Madness 2. And Pokemon Train Car Game. The only reason it's on the list because the list is weak and all that. It's a train car game. It's very difficult. But hey, I beat it 2 years ago. And the honorable mentions is Rita Rabbit First Grade, which is another infotainment game of the 90s where you play as Rita Rabbit. And it does like puzzles, mini games, and math and stuff for first graders. And all right, we have to collect a whole bunch of stuff before the end of the day. It's good, but just not enough to make the list. And Tonka Garage, like I just mentioned the Tonka stuff earlier. Same thing, just involving a garage. That game was honestly even more buggy than Tonka Raceway in my experience. That's why I haven't played it much either. Alright, now on to 1997 is my best game of 1998, Red, Blue, and Yellow. And yeah, this is a very bad list. There's really nothing in 1997. It's so bad that either of these games could be taken out easily if other stuff show up. Anyways, Tonka Search and Rescue, that's a default choice because the second game is Gran Turismo, which I only played 3.3 hours on. So, a game of my childhood compared to a game I didn't play till 2016, only for a few hours emulating it back in 2016. Yeah, that's a default choice. Tonka Search and Rescue. I almost considered ending off right here, but I knew 1996 was the last good year, so I decided to continue on and such. So, yeah. If there was any other games in 1997, I can easily see this list completely flipping. But for right now, this is it. There's nothing else to say. Alright, and then we finally get to the last one. The last good year. 1996. And that is Command & Conquer Red Alert. This was a tough one between that and Civilization 2, which I think lately is becoming my favorite Civilization game. But Command & Conquer means more to me growing up as a kid, watching my dad and uncle play it. It's the most financially successful Command & Conquer game of all time. It sold a third of all the entire series' games. So, yeah, that was easy number 1 eventually. Civilization 2 is number 2. And Super Mario 64 is number 3. I thought when I did this list it was going to be number 1, but it ended up being number 3. And then Pokemon Japanese Red and Green, the very first Pokemon games. If it wasn't for them being in Japanese, if there was like a way to like have it translated, I might consider putting them at the top. But it just doesn't have this nostalgia factor to me like the first, like Red, Blue, and Yellow does. And that's why they're 4th on the list. And I wouldn't be surprised if I ever played Blue, which I have Blue, Japanese Blue, but I haven't played it yet. I'm going to do that eventually. But I think it will eventually be in the top 5 as well, with Japanese Red and Green. And the last one is Super Mario 64, again a default option. It was my first Mario Kart game. I don't like it anymore. I think it's the worst Mario Kart game I've played. It is way too hard and all that. But it deserved a top 5 spot because there's nothing else other than Tonka Construction, which is just Tonka Construction 2, which I mentioned earlier. Just not enough to get in the top 5 either. Alright, so there you go, everyone. Those are my top 5 games from 2024 all the way back to 1996. Now, I will mention really quickly a few games after 1996 that I think are really good, but I'm not going to do those years because there's really like only 3 games left. And that is Monopoly in 1995, another very beloved PlayStation, PC game I played growing up. I love the music on. I wish I could play the music, but it doesn't freaking work on my VirtualBox, which pisses me off. But yeah, that's awesome. I hope I one day might do a YouTube video playing Monopoly 1995. I'll just mention this right off the top of my head. Transport Tycoon Deluxe, which is OpenTTD, but when it came out in 1994. But not really much to say other than what I said about OpenTTD. Watched my dad and uncle playing growing up, and the music on it's awesome. Again, I wish I could get the music, but I can't, and OpenTTD doesn't have it. And then Crisis in the Kremlin, 1993, I think it came out. It's where you're the premier of the Soviet Union, and you're trying to maintain the Soviet Union, make it survive, and not get overthrown and all that. I only beat it one time back in 2017. It's pretty cool and all that, but it's pretty challenging. And then finally, the last one I'll mention is Civilization 1, the first Civilization game that came out in 1991. Really good and all that. Alright, guys. So I hope you enjoyed my list. 1996 was Command Conquer Red Alert. 1997, Tonka Search and Rescue. 1998, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. 1999, Pokemon Gold, Silver. 2000, Pokemon Crystal. 2001, Super Smash Bros. Melee. 2002, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. 2003, Madden NFL 2004. 2004, Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Emerald. 2005, Riggs of Rods. 2006, Pokemon Diamond Pearl. 2007, Command Conquer Free Tiberian Wars. 2008, Pokemon Platinum. 2009, Pokemon Heart Gold, Soul Silver. 2010, Pokemon Black and White. 2011, Minecraft. 2012, Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. 2013, Pokemon X and Y. 2014, Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. 2015, Pokemon Infinite Fusion. 2016, Pokemon Sun and Moon. 2017, Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. 2018, Wreckfest. 2019, Pokemon Sword and Shield, unfortunately. 2020, Retro Bowl. 2021, Mad Games Tycoon 2. 2022, Mad NFL 23. 2023, Pikmin 4. And then 2024, Age of History 3. And there we go. I cannot wait to see for 2025. There are 3 games in particular I'm looking forward to. Monster Hunter Wilds, which is very, very unoptimized from what I heard recently. And I tried the bench marker of it recently, and it doesn't work well on my desktop. So I don't think I'm going to be able to play it right now. But I hope to eventually play as a huge Monster Hunter fan. Gilded Destinies, which I've been waiting for like the last 2 years. It's basically another Grand Strategy Victoria 2-like game that takes place in the 1800s. Can't wait to see that. And the last one is not coming to my head right now, unfortunately. But I think it was another like grand strategy game and such. Alright, so there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed this list I spent a lot of time researching and looking into. So, hope you enjoyed.